Hi folks, welcome back once again to Santa Cruz's #1 Google Slides pre-recorded broadcast. And I want to try and help you today relax a little bit in the face of midterms, the dreaded midterms, which may well have you down. In these difficult times, I have a pretty chill reading recommendation as well as, let's say, a way to figure out how you're going to do in advance, which can help you figure out whether to study or not. Because, if you know how you're going to do, why bother studying? And that is the Irk, or Book of Irks. What is an Irk? There's a reason I left that word untranslated, which is that, first of all, we don't really have a good translation for it in English, and second of all, people aren't 100% sure what it means. I mean, Irk is a word in the Gurk-Turk language, which is a language which is distantly related to modern Turkish, spoken in late antiquity in the Middle Ages. It is written in a runic script, which you can see an example of on your screen there. It's the rune-looking thing. And it is related to Uyghur Turkic. It's a very similar language. The difference is the script and some features of vocabulary as well. They are both Old Turkic languages, spoken in a wide swath of Central Asia, in particular the modern Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Zone in China. Now, the Irk, the Book of Irk, is written in the runic Turkic language, Orkhan runes. It's named after the main inscription on which they were originally noticed or found. Big monoliths that have inscribed runes in them. And this book probably dates from around the 9th century CE. It was found in this big trove of other documents in a place called Dunhuang, which has big caves, one of which, the Cave of 1,000 Buddhas, because it has a lot of Buddhas in it, I don't know if it's exactly 1,000, had a whole bunch of documents deposited in it, in a bunch of different languages, including Uyghur, Sogdian, and the Book of Irks, so Gurk-Turk runic as well. Now, all this history doesn't necessarily help us figure out what it means. People have deduced from the fact that on a page, an Irk is a series of dots, dots that appear in groups of at most 4, and so you have at most 12 dots on the page. People have deduced from these facts that an Irk is a roll of the dice. A roll of 3 4-sided dice, probably not made out of compact plastic, but in this time out of sheep knuckle bones. The classic 4-sided die of antiquity, common from Rome to China, basically in the ancient world. And this is a throw of the dice that tells you your fate. So this is a guidebook for how to read and interpret various throws of the dice as omens. Now, just a list of possible die throws with this is good, this is bad, etc., would be a pretty boring book. And the Irk is anything but boring. And that's because there's a little story that goes with each roll. Apparently, these stories are an interpretation of what the roll looks like to this particular interpreter of omens. And these stories, which are kind of cool and pretty inventive, make this probably the earliest Turkic language literary text. What do I mean? Well, let's take some examples, and I want to start with a good omen. Now that's a 3 and a 2 and a 2. And this omen is interpreted as a hermaphroditic camel. Okay. Which has been the occasion of a certain amount of scholarly confusion. Tirir Bul Rahman means literally, I am a dromedary Bactrian. Now, you know that Bactrian and dromedary camels are not the same thing. Bactrians have 2 humps, dromedaries have 1. How can you be a Bactrian and a dromedary both at once? It seems that in Central Asia, female dromedary camels were used to serve male Bactrian camels, or rather vice versa. I'm not too up on the language of livestock breeding. But dromedary camels, which were a late introduction into Central Asia from the Middle East, were frequently mated with male Bactrian camels. So a camel that is a Bactrian and a dromedary both at once, Tirirbura, is both male and female. It's a hermaphroditic camel. And it spits everywhere. I don't know if y'all have seen a camel, but they do like to spit. They like to have a good foamy spit and spit it at people. And the spittle of this particular camel, raises the dead and wakes the sleeping. It's pretty good magic. Spit of animals or of humans is a pretty classic magical ingredient. So this spit of a hermaphroditic camel is apparently one of the best things you can have. And so the omen that looks like that, it good. Ad gol. A good omen. Now, if that's a good omen, getting spit on by the magic camel, what's a bad one? Well, I mean, you've probably had a day like this, right? You just drop your mirror in the lake, you mumble about it in the morning, you mutter about it in the evening. Well, what's so bad about that? You just go get a new mirror at the Verizon store or whatever. Well, for one thing, mirrors are expensive. I have a lecture about this that's about a month old. 2 months old? It's old. You can go back and look at it. Mirrors are expensive. Mirrors are valuable throughout the pre-modern world. The most valuable piece of property that a woman might have for herself, the average woman might have for herself, would be a mirror, something made out of metal, often something made out of precious metal. So you don't want to drop it in the lake if you can avoid it. So there's that. But then, thinking about it a little more, what do you see in the mirror? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Well, it's you. And you don't want to drop you in the lake. You don't want to drop half your soul in the lake, this reflection of yourself, your other half. Because you might wake up, to madness, find your other half gone. And that's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Anyig yablako. That's very bad, in fact. Now, you might have noted that all of these stories seem to take place in a world that's just a little bit different than ours. A world in which animals and even non-living objects, like mirrors, have power and agency, while humans are, let's say, victims of immaterial forces acting on them from outside, or material forces, actually. Often, the writer of the Irks is actually speaking from the animal point of view. The I that is speaking in the text is the animal. Right? Remember? Tirbograman, I am a hermaphroditic camel. The author of the text is speaking from the animal point of view. So interpreters of this text have thought that it reflects some kind of animism. Animism that was maybe fairly common in northern Central Asia. It's now of more restricted circulation because it's kind of been swamped by the various major world religions. What is this kind of animism? Animism at bottom is just the view that humans aren't the only agents in the world that matter. That other things like animals, plants, mirrors can also have agency, can have selves, and can be spiritually powerful. And that is, it seems like the basic point of view that the author of these little stories that go with the Irks is taking. Camels are agents. Camels are people too. Now, a world in which animals and non-living things have agency and can have power over us, can act intentionally and do stuff on purpose, that's a world in which a roll of the dice really can matter, right? The dice have agency. The dice can be trying to tell you something because they have intentionality. They aim to do things. So what we might think of as a way of leaving things up to chance, rolling dice, is, from an animistic point of view, maybe rather asking the dice. And the dice will tell you. The dice will tell you what is going to happen because maybe they know what we don't. Okay, having said that, just want to talk about one more Irk. And this one's my fave. Not just because it highlights the sameness of the human and animal experience, which it does. The Tangri Kut, the grace of God, it exists for humans and animals and birds alike. Humans and animals and birds all have the same subjective experience of being lost here. But also because it's a bit on brand for UCSC, right? Because, there's fog to the left of me and smoke on the right, and here I am, stuck in the middle alone. The birds get lost, the beasts get lost, the people get lost. Fog was hanging above and dust was rising below. The young birds lost their way flying. The young deer, and that word is probably just four-legged animals in general. Kiik does not mean specifically deer here. The young animals lost their way running, and the children, human children, that is specifically Kishioli, human children, children of someone, lost their way walking. And again, by the grace of heaven, Tangrikut, Tangrikutinda, they all met in the third year, safe and sound. They all rejoiced and were glad, it says. It here being the throw of the dice. A 1, a 4, a 1. Know thus, the omen is good. So they do all take 3 years to graduate, but they do in the end get together, and that's a happy ending. So I think that this is a cool Irk for a couple of reasons. Another reason I like it is that you can really see actually how Göktürk is forming and becoming a literary language. Let me tell you what I mean by that. There are a couple of key phrases here. Asan tukav and Ogerar sabinur. Two key phrases, which are both stock phrases from Uyghur letter writing. The Uyghur epistolary tradition. We have quite a lot of Uyghur letters, which, as I said, are linguistically very close to Göktürk, maybe just a difference of script. These stock phrases from Turkish letter writing, which functions sort of like a dear X or sincerely Y as in English letter writing now. There's usually this quite a long preamble, formulaic preamble to Uyghur letters. The formula is something like, I would rejoice, Ogerar sabinurman, to see you safe and sound. Asan tukav, totally safe and sound. And it seems like these epistolary formulae are being referenced here. Why? Why is that? I think because letters express this very understandable form of human longing among people who know one another and love one another, but may not be able to see one another for years and years on end, because they're on merchant expeditions, for instance, because one of them has taken up residence in a monastery, because one of them has been displaced by warfare, or something like that. These letters go between close relatives who miss each other very much, and so that formulaic opening may in fact be meant in a quite heartfelt way. So this reference to a written expression for a form of longing which humans experience all the time is, I think, a way of making sense of the longing that birds feel, the longing that animals feel when they themselves are separated by fog and dust from one another for years on end. So there's this kind of literary language that is actually intended to make this animist point, intended to make the experience of being a bird, of being a beast, comprehensible to us in terms that make sense to us. I think that's cool, and that's why this is my favorite Irk. But you should take a look at the PDF. I've put a link in the description to the vid, so you can pick your own. And while you're looking, maybe roll some dice a bit. take this chance to chill out about the future. After all, what you do doesn't matter all that much. So why not give up that illusion of control and just let the dice tell you what to do?